Well, this is an album that kind of came out of nowhere for me, from a legacy band that I always try to keep my finger on the pulse for. And yeah, it's just following not only their own streak of really great music, but also just a streak that I'm seeing a lot this year of these kind of bands that are coming back and putting out some really great bangers of records kind of back to back to back. So yeah, with that being said, let's just dive into it.
Take my hand, let us dance in the rain and remember me.
Seawater by Mostly Autumn. So Mostly Autumn is a UK progressive folk band getting their start in the early 2000s, very, very late 90s, early 2000s. What kind of set these guys apart from a lot of the other progressive rock bands is not only their capturing of what blends that traditional progressive rock sound with that folk aspect. It just feels vibes. You know, that's the best way I could put it. It's just vibes. This is also where Heather Finley really started to shine, and that was what really drew me towards this band. After being introduced to her with her work with Arion, I went out and searched like the bands that made her big and famous, and so I really fell in love with their Last Bright Light from 2001, and I've kind of had my finger on the pulse on their albums since then, and unfortunately nothing really hit me quite as hard as that one, especially once she left and we had other individuals in the band since then. And like, I still love Olivia Spearman, I believe, Sparnen, who comes in and does quite a bit of the vocals since Heather has left, but I don't know, there's something that just really captures it. And also, Olivia has kind of taken a little bit of a back seat in recent releases with Brian Josh, who has been kind of the figurehead of the band since the beginning, writing most of the albums, you know, both musically and lyrically. And I feel like as much as I like Brian, his vocals don't quite mesh with my idea of the band. And I know that's a me problem. You know, I'm coming to the table knowing full well that's a me problem. But like, when I come to listen to a Mostly Autumn record, I'm looking for that feminine touch. I'm looking for that deep Celtic, deep vibes moments on there. And I'm just, whenever Brian starts singing, I'm like, this feels more like a folk album that, say, a Mike Oldfield would put out, rather than that progressive folk album that we would get from a Renaissance. Again, that's a me problem. If I want more of that feminine, really great vibes, I'm going to go to a band like Karnataka with their masterpiece of The Gathering Light. I know that, right? Again, this is a me problem. I want to talk about what we're finding on this record. And this is following suit with kind of a 3-album run, starting with The White Rainbow in 2018, The Graveyard Star from 2021, and now we're getting Seawater here. And I just feel like each one improves upon the last, and the same can definitely be said about Seawater. I don't know if it's quite on par with Graveyard Star, if I'm being perfectly honest, but what I will say is that the vibes are still here, the music is still pumping, and it's providing some of my favorite music that I've gotten from Mostly Autumn in a very long time. A lot of that is, these songs are, for the most part, a little bit more on the longer side. The opening track of Let's Take a Walk, as well as When We Run, you know, it's kind of funny that it's Let's Take a Walk and When We Run, are both in the 9 minutes, and both have Troy Donockley, I believe is how you pronounce it, as well as Why Do We Remember All the Rain. You know, he's being accredited basically right on Spotify as helping out and featuring. But honestly, like, where this album does shine is, as I mentioned, those longer passages of music to allow for that vibes to really begin and really take fold. And that's where I come to this album, and just, I really enjoy that vibey, Celtic, folky aspect of it. We've got that very misty moors on that kind of a stretch of music. I do think, if I'm going to get into the criticisms that I have of this album, the first is that it's a little on the long side. You know, if I were producing this record, I would make this a proper double record, you know, because it's about an hour and 16 minutes worth of music. That's a little long. I could probably trim off some of the fat on this record, because not everything lands. Like, the Let's Take a Walk is fine, But it does a very interesting way of opening up with a little bit more of the distorted guitars and the distorted vocal works. And really, let's talk about Why Do We Remember All the Rain, which I feel is really the proper opening track of this album. Even though I love Let's Take a Walk. This is what I love about this album and the Mostly Autumn to begin with. It got that feminine touch within the vocal works. Again, honestly, it's when Brian is taking the lead vocals that I start to tune out, if I'm being honest. Be Something and My Home, in my mind, are both kind of snooze fests, you know? And I feel like we covered everything that needed to be said in this style with Let's Take a Walk, you know? And I feel like both My Home and Be Something are kind of derivative. They don't cover a whole lot of new grounds. And I'm waiting for a little bit more of the Celtic folky flavors. And honestly, I don't mind when Brian is doing the duet with Olivia, like on the track Mars. It feels a little bit more genuine. It feels a little bit more homegrown in that sense. But yeah, I feel like those tracks could be cut and you wouldn't lose anything. Same a little bit with When Nations Collide and The Future Is a Child. At least with both of those tracks, there's a little bit of a pleasant climb. There's a little bit of a reason for the tracks to be there. But yeah, I was just kind of left a little bit confused about those. But let's talk about the star. Let's talk about Seawater. This is the grand 19-minute track on here, and this is why I think a lot of the fans are coming to this record and are excited about this record. And I can totally see why. I love the builds. I love the climbs. I love how, this whole track is a massive vibe that I really appreciate, and I just cannot help but just put this on and get washed away. I feel like I am on the moor. I feel like the mists are coming in. I feel like Avalon is just around the corner. And it's just a great, great execution. I feel like this will be one that will be, a fan favorite moving forward. And it was a really great time. So yeah, in the end, Seawater continues the trend that White Rainbow and Graveyard Star kind of started, and I'm super stoked to see where we go from here. I do wish that, Brian kind of took a little bit more of a back seat in the singing styles for albums coming up, and Olivia is really able to shine because her voice is so much more powerful. It's got so much more of a stay power than Brian can ever really hope to have. Brian does a great job of harmonizing, and on the tracks that he's harmonizing with Olivia, that is where he shines. But my boy, take a backseat. I enjoyed this album. I had a great time with this record, and my final rating for this record will be Seawater by Mostly Autumn is an album that I would absolutely download. This was a great time. This was a really surprising treat for me because I didn't realize they had released an album until I saw it on my recommendations and with some of my friends recommending it to me. So I love when an album kind of comes out of nowhere and surprises me. The same thing happened with White Rainbow and the same thing happened with Graveyard Star, and I'm pretty sure the same thing's going to happen to me with their next record. So yeah, that's what I've got for Seawater. What did you guys think about this record? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. And I think that's where I'm going to leave you for today. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.